back. And if you're joining us now, we're just getting our first conversation for this morning started. And as we said before the break, we are talking with representatives from the Public Service Union, and they are sharing all about their 99th anniversary and how they are going to be celebrating. Of course, we're going to discuss a range of topics as well. Joining us this morning, we have Dean Flowers, who is the president of the Public Service Union, as well as Anissa Gonzalez, who is the first vice president of the P.S.U. Good morning.
Morning.
And thank you so much for joining us. And, during the break, we were just discussing how incredible it seems that the P.S.U. has been around for 99 years and what marking that milestone means to you. So perhaps we can just start there and continue. What does 99 years signify to you at this point in time? How special is it to mark this anniversary? Anissa, you can start since we were already.
Woman first.
Yes.
Well, I am overwhelmed to be in a union, first of all. Very proud to be a part of the Public Service Union. And those are some of the words that we want to carry forward. And even, for public officers and our Public Service Union members to understand the overwhelming feeling of being a part of a trade union. Back in 1922, who said that we would have been here 99 years now? Next year is going to be our centennial. That's one of the greatest accomplishments of a trade union, to be around so long and to have some of the accomplishments that the trade union has started over the years, not only us, but trade unions as a whole. So Public Service Union has come a very, very long way. We have had ups and downs, but we want to say that it's more up than down. We're here for the public officers. We're here to fight for their cause, and we continue to fight for their cause.
Yeah. The challenge in that kind of sustainability is definitely maintaining the relevance of the institution itself. And it's an interesting time to be a unionist, as we've seen in recent times, where you come forward and you have to be able to not only defend the internal structures of the union, but also prove your growth and maintain a pulse on the issues that are really affecting your members. Let's talk about putting that into perspective now at 99. Dean?
Well, first of all, good morning. Good. Thanks for having us and for giving us this platform each and every time we so desire. P.S.U. at 99, I think a key word that you used just now was the issue of relevance. And I think that when we reflect and we look back, the union has always been relevant in the national context, not only from a laborer standpoint or public officer standpoint, but even in the national context. Our history speaks for itself. However, we cannot deny that in recent past, that relevance has been diminished for whatever reason. And that is a challenge that we're now faced with to ensure that we become and that we are relevant in the national scheme of things, and that our focus and our role expands beyond looking after public officers, but also ensuring that in the national context that we influence policies, which ultimately comes back to impact on public officers. So as we move forward with a new executive, with myself as leadership, in the leadership position, that is one of our goals, maintaining relevance and maintaining a presence in everything that we do, or in every situation, in every way possible in terms of how this country is developing.
Yeah. And the role of the public service itself is one that is so integral to the development of the country. In what we have discussed, especially with the recent impasse, we have talked about how the public service very often is the vehicle that will follow through on policies, that will help to keep some of the accountability that we hear being called for from the public. But at the same time, it's also like, it's also that you can be perpetrator and you can be victim. So for you and your leadership, how do you go about professionalizing, I don't know if that's the right word, but getting your members to the point where they recognize that they are an instrumental part in getting the type of democracy that we want?
Yes. And that's a huge challenge. And some of the things that we're doing to ensure, and I think the word professionalizing is on point. We must make public officers understand their roles and function, and more importantly, their responsibility. For the most part, I think the union has always preached, you're right, this is your right, this is your right, this is your right. But we have not hammered home what are your responsibilities as a public officer. And that has caused public officers to go astray and to be engulfed in the not so good climate that exists within the public service. That is not something that we've ever shied away from, and that is not something that we will shy away from. What we are doing is that we're partnering with the Ministry of Public Service to bring back, to assist them in bringing back the orientation process for new public officers. And as part of that orientation process, we want to have a segment whereby we can go in, introduce ourselves as the union, enroll new members, and more importantly, educate them in terms of what is expected of them. For too long, perhaps over the last 20, 30 years, and maybe that's maybe stretching it, but perhaps over the last 20 years, I think that we've injected public officers into the service politically rather than in accordance with the public service regulation. We've done absolutely no introduction, and this is from a government standpoint and a union standpoint. And so people come in, they don't know what to do. They're just simply sent to office. That continues to exist as we speak today. And so we realize that we have to break that cycle. And part of that is bringing back the orientation which the Ministry of Public Service has committed to. Under the P.S.U, Dr. Martinez, the intent was to sign an MOU. We will be now effecting that under CEO Zatina, and see how in partnership with the government, we can change the mindset, the attitude, and the behavior of public officers to do just that, professionalize them so that they render quality service.
And then I just want to add, it goes both ways, because as much as you said, the government is a vehicle, we're the machinery behind, you know, and as much the government needs to understand the importance of our role, and our role needs to play as much part as what they're doing. So at the same time, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask what it is like actually, you know, navigating that relationship with the government, because inherently the public service will at times or in some way or form fall prey to some sort of political bias or whatever you want to call it. And so, you know, one challenge I suppose is dealing with that within the membership itself, but also when you have to engage with the government in order to enact its policies. So what is it like, especially now that you are in the leadership position?
Well, the first thing I try to do when I try to effect change, and what I intend to do is when we attempt to effect the kind of change that we need, is to go back to the government's plan. If you take a look at Plan Belize, the Blue Manifesto, it is spelled out clearly what the government hopes to achieve during its term where the public service is concerned. They're pledging, or they have pledged, and they came into governance under the pledge that we will be a hands-off type of government where the public service is concerned. That is in their manifesto. They want to free the public service from political interference. They've also stated in their manifesto that they want to be a a cabinet, or they want to run a cabinet that is not a dictatorship of policies. And finally, with regards to the public service, they're saying that they want to revisit the re-establishment or the re-implementation of permanent secretaries so as to get rid of these political creatures called chief executive officers.
Yeah.
That's not the Public Service Union pledge. That is not Dean Flowers emotionally speaking. That is what is in Plan Blue. And we will hold them accountable to that, because 8 months in, we're seeing that cabinet spends more time deciding which employee goes home and who gets hired in the public service rather than establishing policies. And again, that's not emotions. That's facts. That's facts. That is what we're seeing. You can see that through the terminations. You can see that through the employments. You can see that when CEOs are overstepping their boundaries and their rules where the transfer of public officers is concerned. We're seeing where currently, and especially within the Ministry of Health, you have 2 administrators. Why? Because one was transferred in accordance with the public service regulations by the Public Service Commission, and the other one was transferred by the CEO under the direction of the minister. So a lot of people exist in the service that are being paid to do nothing. Why? Because ministers continue to interfere in the running of the public service despite their pledge in the Plan Blue Manifesto. And that is something that at every opportunity that we get, we will remind them so that we can fix exactly that problem that you've identified.
I want to step back for a moment. You said there's a lot to unpack from what you just said, but the core issue really goes back to the original challenge that was posed when you issued your strike notice and went on a continuous strike, which technically never came to an end.
No.
But you fought, so technically you are still in a strike.
We're still
or
in
a
a
trade
dispute.
Trade dispute.
So, when you look at the challenge that was mounted by the unions this year and the long drawn out process with the visibility and all that you were trying to do, the mandate, it was multifaceted. You were looking at good governance, but the key issue was really looking at the 10% cut. Now, you were unsuccessful. You were not able to secure that additional 10% for your members. How has that affected the morale of the union and the membership?
As somebody who was in the eye of the storm,
Of course.
I want to say that it has the fact that when we enter this dispute, and the long and short of that is that the salary cut was effected. But as you rightly stated, the trade dispute is not over. We still hold our position that it is as a result of poor governance and maladministration that resulted in that cut. And that's the reason why we decided to file a trade dispute, because we're saying you need to fix what brought us here. And you will not pull a veil over our eyes and say to us that COVID got us here. COVID, as everybody knows, merely lift the veil of the corrupt practices of government, whether red or blue. Were public officers discouraged, and are they discouraged as a result of the cut? Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, they are now entering into a phase of serious economic crisis. And we expect that will worsen come August and September when school reopens. And so we expect a very, very blue to purple Christmas and a very, very sad 5 months towards the end of 2021 for public officers and by extension laborers of this country, because stretching it a bit, we know that the CW within the port are expected to lose the shipment of sugar. So
Yeah, they're on a 21-day
yeah.
notice to strike as well.
$5 million out of the Belize city economy, 160 people affected. So there are dark days ahead for public officers and neighbors of this country. But in every crisis there are opportunities. And what this helped us to do was to reflect, look ourselves in the mirror, and re-strategize. What are we doing wrong? What can we do different? And maybe as a blessing in disguise, we went into our 99th election. And coming out of that was new leadership and a new executive or new council of management. A lot of vibrant people, a lot of people with ideas, and we have now started engaging more with public officers, and I'm pleased to say that despite the 10%, our membership is increasing more than ever.
Yeah.
I got an email
This past
yesterday.
year, you had a
Yes.
huge growth in membership.
Yes.
Yes.
Yesterday I was impressed. I was very impressed with the recruitment for the month of June, which we get monthly. And I want to applaud Sister Gail Garcia and her team here in Belize City because they were impressive this month. So what we're seeing is that the message that we're preaching that now is you need to be a part of the union now more than ever, because collectively is where we would be able to gain strength and influence the type of policy decisions that we need to influence. And so I want to also take this opportunity to say to those public officers who did leave the union as a result of the discouragement. Because
after not being able to secure the
they felt
10%.
that we didn't do enough, and especially those who participated felt that they were let down by those who we called curtain peepers, no? Because a lot of them were behind the curtains peeping but not participating. So they felt discouraged, and a lot of them walked away. But despite that small group, the recruitment has been tremendous, and I want to encourage everybody to come back because we don't have the answers. We're simply the council of management. And if you look at the hierarchy of the union, the membership dictates the direction, and it is the membership that we expect that will say to us what direction and what decisions they want us to go into.
Now, that's on one end, how it affected the membership and kind of just the trust that people had in the union. You put up a good fight, but you lost. My question is now, how does that affect the relationship and ongoing negotiations that must take place with the administration?
We're professionals. That's the first thing I want to put out there, and we will never approach conversations with the government in a disrespectful or adversarial manner, despite these type of disagreements. I respect fully the government's consultation team, and I respect fully the minister and CEO in the Ministry of Public Service, and I want to say that I have a very cordial and respectful relationship with them. We have met preliminary introductory meeting with them where we've touched on this issue and touched on what we expect from them and what they expect from us. Despite the 10%, we've said to them, it remains unresolved, and if it is that we will have to remind them of that for the next 5 years, then that is exactly what we will do. We will not stop until we believe that we have been treated fairly where the removal of our economic rights is concerned. You cannot take away people's property without properly compensating them. And some of the proposals that the government put forward are not necessarily, do not necessarily guarantee proper compensation for the removal of that 10% from public officers. And our position has always been, we didn't have to go there first.
So let me just backtrack a bit. So you're in month 4 now of your trade dispute.
Yes, we filed that, I believe it was in April.
In April, yeah, after the municipal election. The question is now, what does a trade dispute look like that's been prolonged for so long?
2 comments on that. One, we still believe that the Ministry of Labor failed us. We respect their position, and their position is that they deal with substantive law. I think it was on the Minister of Public Service deals with a constitutional law, 1063 and verses 298. And so they're saying we can't get in at a fight, so we won't address the trade dispute. So we respect that, but we don't agree with it. We believe that they have a duty and an obligation to resolve disputes when they exist. I lost my train of thought.
You were saying that there were two parts to it. The first is that the Ministry of Labor is saying that they are not responsible for resolving the dispute.
Yes, but in relation to your question,
Yeah, about what a trade dispute looks like
yes.
4 months in.
4 months.
yeah. So 4 months in now, what we've said to public officers, having not resolved this dispute, we continue to exercise mild forms of industrial actions. And that includes go-slows, that includes work to rule, and I want to applaud especially the Nurses Association of Belize, who has been perhaps the most consistent group of workers to ensure that they stand in solidarity and that they stand for what they believe in and that they were treated unfair, even with, as we speak right now, this reduced work week, 5 hours, and the manner in which compensation is being afforded to them, when in fact these are people who already are not receiving pay for overtime because they work too much overtime, and so the government is unable to pay them in a timely fashion. I want to applaud them, but I also want to applaud those public officers across the country who continue to do just that. They work to rule, they don't do any overtime, and they will.
So you're still on go slow?
Yeah, yeah, we're still on go slow. We're still on go slow, and we're still working as we see fit.
Until what is resolved?
Until the government revisits this 10%, and until the government effects the good governance measures that they committed to. We have written to the Prime Minister. We wrote to the Prime Minister, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and in customary fashion, we've received absolutely no response. That is now becoming part of his legacy. We've never seen a response from the Prime Minister since he took office November. I've never seen a response from him at the NTUCB level where I'm a delegate, nor at the P.S.U. level where I'm the president. Never seen a response from him.
What was in that request?
We've said to him, in accordance with your final best offer, in which you committed to establish this social partnership committee to oversee the recovery and to advise on tax recovery, arrears and so on, we would like to have a conversation on that, to put together that committee. We do not agree that that committee is supposed to convene every 6 months. We believe that that committee needs to meet more regularly, and we want to ensure that we hit the ground running where that committee is concerned. The Prime Minister, in his last best after, is saying that he wants to look at that committee in October. So what happens between now and October? What happens between now and October? And so we're not in agreement with that, and we want to address that in the immediate. But like I said, in typical fashion, there's been no response.
Now, we talked a bit about the 10%, and there's definitely more to get in there to look at how you were unsuccessful in being able to secure that point. But on the flip side, you were able to get the process of the good governance legislation expedited, specifically when you were looking at the Whistleblowers Act, and we know that there is ongoing consultation for the Unexplained Wealth and Recovery of Assets bill. So let's talk about how these can be an instrumental part of even strengthening the Public Service Union itself, if there is a Whistleblowers Act in place.
It will definitely strengthen not only the Public Service Union and the public service, but it will strengthen our entire system of governance. We have made submission, we've made our comments to the House Committee. We've asked that the bill be pushed back, and we're glad to see that that has taken place, because we believe that there needs to be wider and broader consultation, and there needs to be a clear mechanism in terms of how we will effect this legislation. We cannot continue to adopt legislation which we cannot even begin to effect. There is absolutely no oversight body to enforce. It continues to be that, okay, you go whistleblow some reporting agency, and then I guess the Commissioner of Police will decide what he does and if he wants to do anything, and then probably we end up with another writ of mandamus for him to investigate some minister. So we're saying we're not going down that road. Dean Barrow played that card for 13 years, putting in place legislation that served absolutely no purpose, especially where accountability and transparency is concerned. And so that is where we are with that. And as you rightly said, the conversation surrounding the asset recovery bill continues. But we're hopeful. We're hopeful. We hope that the proposed amendments to the Constitution will not trump these legislation, which are far more important than removing somebody from office. So I would hope that the government does not lose focus on what needs to be done to improve this country, rather than waste time and resources on political
well, you jumped the gun on that one, but I do want to talk about the 10th Amendment, and it's been a conversation, I think, that has, with all the political drama that's been playing out and the pandemic itself, we have not talked about these amendments and how critical they are. The 10th Amendment specifically, I want to hear from you, because there's an interesting situation here, because as you noted earlier, we know that there are typical political appointments that take place. We know that in practice, some positions should be based on qualification or on the possibility of a person being able to execute the post. But while that is the theoretical way of going about it, it's actually just been political appointments. So let's hear what you think of the current amendments for the 10th Amendment.
Well, we made a very lengthy submission thanks to our legal team and primarily Sister Nicola Shaw, who gives freely of her service to the union and as a member. As it relates to the 10th Amendment, the government's proposed 10th Amendments has one objective: remove the chairman and the members of this committee. There's absolutely nothing there outside of that. Get rid of these people and make their term of office concurrent with the term of office for with any government. We believe that when we look at Plan Belize, again I go to Plan Belize, Plan Belize is clear that they wanted to make these oversight bodies free from political interference and free from political majority rule. This administration had a big fight with Barrow administration, whereby Barrow said, winner takes all, to the winner goes the spoils, and so he will not give up these majority on these committees. This administration placed in its Plan Belize that we're not going there. These committees will be free of political majority, and these committees will be free of political interference. Yet we're seeing in the 10th Amendment where the government is appointing 3 members, 3 or 5 members, including the chairman. And so we reject the 10th Amendment as being proposed. Do we need to amend how these people are appointed, and perhaps even the composition, which is what we're suggesting, that also perhaps needs to be looked at. Yes, there needs to be some amendment to it. And I want to touch on...
So you agree that there are changes that should be made
to remove the political influence on these committees, because let's not hide the fact the current Public Service Commission has been a disgrace, and I say that with no apology, but with ultimate respect for the current Public Service Commission that affects directly my members. They've been a disgrace. The Secretariat has been a huge disappointment, with people acting within that Secretariat without the knowledge of the Commission, and yet nobody is being held accountable. So changes need to be made within those. The Elections and Boundaries Commission, again, there's a lot that needs to happen. And so we agree that we need to reconstitute and fix these commissions, but definitely not in the manner in which the government is proposing. And we wholly, or at least in preliminary discussions, the union does support the social partners, senators' position that perhaps this is time for us to look at an entire constitutional review and see how we can put in place something that works for Belize and for Belizeans, rather than this piecemeal, politically driven type of piecework that is happening here, where these constitutional amendments are being proposed.
Now, looking at this situation, and I think you used the explanation of the composition of the committee itself, because if the 10th Amendment goes through, then at the very least you may be able to agitate for change for the composition of those who will be making the decision on these appointments. What is your ideal composition?
For me, my ideal composition would be the government appoints the chairman, the opposition appoints one person, and the social partners appoint other individuals to those commissions. If it's a if it is a 5-person commission, you have the NTUCB, you have the P.S.U. in the case of the Public Service Commission, you have the chamber, you have the churches, you have the NGOs, and more importantly, in our submission, we're saying we need to include the tertiary level institutions. We need to get them as part of this. They are the future. And so we're saying we need to look at the education sector and perhaps allow that group of universities to start putting somebody that can make meaningful contribution and does not see things from a political lens.
So like a student union representative?
More
at a tertiary level,
Okay.
like university.
Okay.
From that
the academia.
Yes,
the
yes.
academia.
Now, you know, there are so many different issues, I think, that are kind of just bubbling on the surface. The other one is talking about the recent SI that now mandates that frontline workers, and I know you have a position on this, so let's get into, time is limited, of course. So let's talk about what your position is on this.
Do you want to comment on a bit on 74?
Well, up to recent last night.
Yeah.
We and these are some of the things that we're doing, engaging with public officers. We had Dr. Manzanero on our Let's Discuss P.S.U. Just to give his insight as a P.S.U. member and a professional on the COVID-19 vaccine and COVID-19 itself, and he touched briefly on the SI, but where the union stands with the, as such, the government has a right to create the atmosphere whereby public officers need to have a safe and healthy environment, right? However, at the point where the public officers would be marked as absent, that negatively affects the public officers' conditions of service. So that is where the union stand. We would be making a point of it that any public officer who would be marked absent at that point, you change the whole dynamics of that person's condition of service. So as much as we say it has to have something in effect, we have to watch it closely when it affects public officers. Even with the PCR tests, public officers shouldn't be negatively impacted financially. We have, I don't think we have gotten confirmation, but that it should be free. And we think it should be free.
Well, the Minister of Home Affairs has said on record, on the media, that it is free.
Well, that's why we're piggybacking off of the Minister of Home Affairs. And, that is something, if you're going to say that this is something that you present to public officers, want public officers who do not feel at this time they need to take the vaccine, present this to them and say, oh, well, within 2 weeks, you have to present a PCR test. It should in no way affect them financially.
Let me backtrack a bit. Is the union promoting vaccination amongst members?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are. And
what's the level of uptake so far? Are you both vaccinated?
I am fully vaccinated.
I am not vaccinated. I am a proponent of the vaccine in terms of encouraging my members to get vaccinated. I myself needed more information, and I am very grateful for that show last night, which featured Dr. Marvin Manzanero. I think he did an excellent presentation. I encourage public officers to go and review the show. It's on the Public Service Union Facebook page and most of the branches' Facebook page. It's a very informative.
So do you now feel that you can go get vaccinated?
I am 95% there, Marlene.
You're very much like our commissioner who says, go get vaccinated, but I haven't.
I am 90, and I want to say this with all honesty.
Yes.
Today, we're featuring several mini health fairs across the country, which includes the COVID-19 vaccine booth.
Drive.
And today was my day to get my vaccine. And so I will not simply encourage my members to get the vaccine, but I myself, having been satisfied with the information that I have received, but nobody will force me to get a vaccine. I need to be comfortable, and like I said, I'm 95% there in terms of my comfort level on the information and the fear that I had. Because I have real fears, and people have real fears out there, and we have to respect that and be patient with them. And that's why, as Sister Anissa said, we seriously need to have a conversation with the government that you will have to reconsider marking people absent where that PCR test is concerned, because that PCR test, the quickest turnaround time, that's 72 hours. And we know that initially people waited for 3 weeks to get a result. So you cannot keep people out of work. That's denying people the right to work. And of course, I've heard attorneys say, well, that the government have the right. I don't know how it will play out. But we have a duty and an obligation to our members to protect them and their interests. And that is what we will do in consultation with the government.
So let me just be very clear. Are you in opposition of SI 74?
Where marking people absent is concerned.
Where if you don't have a test result to present, you would be considered absent.
Yes.
But you are fine with the choice that is being made available, vaccinate or provide a test.
Yes, we are. However, I want to make clear again, yes, we support that the government has a duty and an obligation to provide a safe working environment for everybody. And as part of the government responsibility, the government is saying, I want to create an environment that is free from infectious disease. And as a result of that, I'm asking you to get a vaccine, but if you don't want to get the vaccine, please get the test. We're fine there. But the government goes further and say, if you come to work without a test, I'll mark you absent. But the person came to work. Please give that person the opportunity to go and get a rapid test rather than a PCR test, because if you force them to go and get a PCR test, there's a turnaround time of 72 hours. And if that happens every 2 weeks or every month or every other month, absenteeism is being accrued, and there's a clear case for dismissal and disciplinary actions there. That could cost that person his or her entire career, because that would result in dismissal.
So you would be satisfied if the change is made that a rapid test result can be accepted?
Exactly. But I would also want to go further and be the devil's advocate. Even for members like Anissa, who is fully vaccinated, but we're fully aware that she can also still become infected. Why isn't she being forced to bring a rapid test or a PCR test? Because she can still be asymptomatic even though she's vaccinated and can vaccinate me. Where they bring my test every 2 weeks. So we have to. So that's why I said that.
Well, I know you're a numbers guy, and percentage-wise, she's far less likely than you are to be able to get COVID or pass it on, because you look at percentages, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But let's and I appreciate you weighing in on that, because that's also another issue. But let's in the last 5 minutes that we have here, I know you're talking about your 99th anniversary. This is a huge accomplishment for the union, but you have such an important role in what's happening in this country, in paying attention to what's happening, and we have our economic recovery plan that's being rolled out right now. And you've always been a very vocal part of monitoring decisions and policies that are being made. How do you think we're doing in terms of the economic recovery at this point?
It goes right back to my initial or my earlier conversation. The Social Partnership Committee. Data, data, data. We need information. We cannot wait for October to get information. We need information on a monthly basis. Which brings me to another point. The Accountant General's office. That office needs to start producing timely financial statements for us to assess and analyze. The financial secretary needs to get to doing his work. As we speak, word has reached us that the Accountant General retires in September. We're now in July. And not one vacancy announcement. No move to fill the post. Are we going back on another contract? And with all due respect to the Accountant General, there has not been any financial statements since 2014-2015 fiscal year. So as we speak, we don't even know what's the financial performance of this country. What we're seeing is just a lot of numbers being pulled out of the air, and that's a fact. That's not me saying it. The last set of financial statements that were produced and presented to the Auditor General, fiscal year 2014-2015. So how is it, am I supposed to have any confidence in the numbers that are being thrown around by the Financial Secretary and the Ministry of Finance today? And so I'm saying, let's deal with the Social Partnership Committee and let's fix these structural deficiencies that we have in these very important offices and get competent people in there.
All right. 2 minutes to tell us how we're celebrating the 99th.
Today, on Open Your Eyes, we're launching our educational grant.
Okay.
I'm not
we
sure
have
I
it
had
up. Yeah,
shared
we have it ready. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as
like
much
this,
as we're celebrating, like you said, public officers are in some financial constraints at this point. And we wanted to launch the educational grant today, assisting our public officers, public service union members. We have 20 scholarships in all, 10 at secondary level, and they have different amounts, and 10 at tertiary level. So we felt it was very important, and like Brother Dean said, come August, September, we might see a more negatively impact on public officers. The union decided to, this is our time to assist even more our public officers. So we're launching it today and
So
inviting public officers.
If they have to be a member?
Yes, you have to be a public service union member. The application is on the thing is attached to the flyer.
Okay.
We have a QR scan. So fill out your application, and there is a criteria that you need to follow. So thanks for opening your eyes for launching it.
Definitely something we know that people are going to need moving forward. And so you're looking at being able to kind of assist the membership and those who are struggling in ensuring the children get their education.
Correct.
What's the deadline?
It's August 6th.
August 6th.
August 6th.
Yeah.
If you allow me, Marlene, I just want to congratulate Sister Marika Zuniga.
Yes. Oh, yes.
She's the winner of the team, and the team is P.S.U. at 99, a call for change, a chance to unite, a stand for our rights. So, Sister Marika, congratulations once again. And I encourage, like I said, public officers to join the union. We have a small loan program as well, which is performing very well for those members who have that fiscal space to access that loan. We're partnering with the National Bank, who has graciously put together a wonderful package, and credit to the former president, Gerald Henry, who started that. It has now been rolled out. We're seeing a lot of our members accessing that, and we want to say to members that they can expect more and more of these partnership and purchasing coalition. Joe Meats in Belize City is offering 10%, and we want to now move to gas stations, pharmacies, and we want to start directing traffic to specific businesses to ensure that they benefit as well as our members.
Nice.
So big things to come with website, with database, and with application, and with ID. an ID so that you can go and present this. So big things is ahead of us. We're proud, we're resilient.
And the bigger thing is you're getting vaccinated today. It's a needle, you know. It's the needle, isn't it, Dee?
Yes.
Well, I need to get advice because as part of my commitment to members to be more visible,
Okay.
we're
heading
going to
PG.
Belmopan to take a little stop in there.
Okay.
We proceed to Dangriga. We'll make a stop there and we go and have dinner tonight with the PG executive.
Nice.
And tomorrow we spend half day visiting the offices down in PG because we realize that our presence is important. People feel empowered. They feel more emboldened when they're sitting in leadership. And so this is something that we pledge and commit to do both at the branch and national level. So based on what, then tell me, Marlene, if I could get it and drive,
Yes, man.
I'll do that.
Yes. And
No,
I'm
but,
sure you could
what
drive
I
too, right?
wanted, yes, I can drive too.
You could drive standard?
Yes,
Alright.
but just to finish off,
Yeah.
you know, it's very important for public officers to know that the topics that are in our present surroundings, that the union will continue to have that dialogue with them about, because I think that was very lacking, that there was not a sense of dialogue amongst public officers about the topics surrounding what's happening in Belize. So we want to tell them we pledge that we will try our best to have that dialogue continue as best as we can.
Definitely. And we saw a list of activities. We scrolled it on the screen across the country taking
Yes,
place to
yes.
celebrate your 99th. Congratulations on the anniversary and
Thank
best
you.
of luck.
Thank
Thank you so
All right.
much for having us.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Beltrade to talk about how to make yourself more marketable when you're on the job hunt. So please stay tuned.